Hello guys, welcome back to the next tutorial. So in this one, we're gonna again continue on our objects and class discussion, and we're gonna see how we use the class keyword, and we're gonna talk a bit more about the class and how do we create the objects and all those sort of things. So in a nutshell, if I just want to define in one sentence what a class is, I would say it's a blueprint, or maybe you can say it's a template that defines the object, and it's gonna create all those sort of blueprint things, that what lies inside the class, what exactly you can put into it, and you can pretty much create a class for anything that you want, right? So that's pretty much it. And then you can use the class, that object, to create instance for that class. The way we define a string, we define a list, we are creating instance of those classes, right? So that's what we do. So let's do it. Let's create a class, and I'm going to take the example of car right now. And the normal conventions are to start with the capital letter, so I will just go and say car. And I would encourage you guys as well to start the name of the class with the capital letter. And if it's more than one word, then just use again a capital letter to differentiate the words. So I would just say car right now, and inside the parentheses you're gonna say object. So and then colon afterwards. So one object, and this thing is, it's we will talk about it more in inheritance lecture, but what this thing is, what my car class is doing, it's inheriting the object class. And object class is again available in Python by default, and there are a lot of features available in it. So when we inherit that class into the car class, we can use all the powers and all the stuff available in object class into our car class. So don't worry about it right now. We will talk about inheritance in future lectures. So that's how we define a class, and inside it we can define methods, we can define attributes, and all those sort of things. So let's first take a look at what is the normal convention. So we can define a method called def, right? Def. And then right now I'm going to define a very special method that's really needed. So underscore two times, and then init, and then underscore. So you guys might be already seeing, right, all this definition is coming up. So I can just hit enter. So what this init method is, this this method or function, it's required for classes, and it's used to initialize all the objects that we're gonna create with the car class. And minimum it takes one parameter called self, and it can take more than it. Don't worry about the self, I'll talk about it. So this method, as I talked about, that it's used to initialize the attributes of an object, and we will talk about what those attributes are. And it allows us to put all these attributes into the class so that we can use them and provide a value to them. So let's say, so I have a car, so I would definitely have some attributes assigned to it, which is, let's say, the make of the car. So I can define the attributes inside it. So this is not what I defined, this is the argument that I'm taking from outside world. When I'm going to create an instance for my car class, I'm going to pass this make thing to my car class. So here then I'm going to use this self dot, and then I'm going to define an attribute. So in this line I'm defining an attribute, and that's the syntax, self dot, and then name of that attribute. So I'm just going to give the same thing as make, name of the attribute, and I'm going to assign it to make. So don't get confused, guys. If you guys can see, the color difference easily makes up for everything. These two are in orange or yellowish color, which is the same thing. So this is the argument that's coming from outside. This is assigning, right? And this self.make is a different variable or attribute, and we can give it a different name as well. So make of sorry, make of make car or anything. I mean, it doesn't matter, but just to keep the name short, I just thought I'll just use the make name, right? So this is the attribute that we define, and that's how we define attributes of the classes. So we have an init method already defined, and we have one attribute already defined for our car class, and we have the first method, which is the init, which is needed to initialize all the attributes, and that's where we initialize the attributes. So what is the self thing that we're talking about, right? And let's just before self, let's talk about something else. So if you're coming from another language like Java, init is like the constructor. So it is something that sort of boots up this class. It just kind of brings up everything. It just sets everything that's needed for the class object to be created. So that's what init is. And what is the self thing? This is something different, right? So this tells that the method in this class is referencing the class name. So basically, it doesn't have to be self here. It can be anything else. It doesn't really matter. But you will see using self everywhere in the Python. So it's just always the first parameter passed into the init method, and Python uses the first parameter in the init method, that whatever it receives, to actually refer the object that gets created. So when I'm going to create an instance of the car class, Python is going to use this first parameter to refer to that instance. So we can use any type, any keyword here, not the keyword, basically anything here. I can just put in anything, but you'll see everybody using self, and that's more than overwhelming. Like it's all over the universe in the Python world that everybody uses self. So for others to make your code understand, it's always good to use self. So this is the first parameter, and you guys noticed that as well, right? When we were typing in the kind of dot walk, also when it shows the tooltip, it was showing self only. So that's what self is. It is used to refer to that particular instance. So basically, when we create multiple instances, it can keep track of which value belongs to which instance. So let's go ahead and let's create the instance of the class quickly. So I'm gonna say C1. Basically, it's my first instance for the car. And you notice, right? This def was indented inside the class, and this is indented inside def. So when I'm putting C1 up here, it's not inside the class. It's definitely outside the class. So I'm just creating the instance of this class, and I'm outside of this class at this moment. So C1 equals to car and parentheses. So that's about it. That's how we create the instance of the class. So what next? Basically, if you're coming from Java or I think C Sharp, those things uses new keyword to create the instance, but Python doesn't need it. It can just create the instance just like that. So what we can do right now? So what we can do is we can just access the attribute that we created. So let's access c1 dot, and you guys see in the all this hint, right? Make. So we can access the make of the class, and inside here you guys see that it is giving me one small underline thing which says parameter make unfilled. So since I haven't provided any make, so you know what, let me just run this code and let me show you the errors. So let's run this code right now, and it says type error init missing one required positional argument make. So it says that we haven't put the positional argument make. And if you notice, we haven't put the self as well, right? But self is by default passed to it when we create the instance. So we don't need to explicitly put any self here. So that's not needed. So what we need to do is we just need to put the make. So I can just put maybe PMW. So that's where I have put the make of the car. And now what it's going to do is it's going to assign this value to self.make. And now I can access using the C1. So C1 is the reference variable that is my instance of the car class, and with that I can put the dot walk, and I can access all the methods and attributes that belongs to that class. I'm gonna access the make, and you know what, right now let's just print it out. So because we're not assigning it anywhere, so print and c1 dot make. So I'm just gonna print c1 dot make right now. So let's run the code, and here you go, we see BMW. Similar way, what I can do is I can create one more instance of my class. Basically I can create any number of instances. There's pretty much no limit. If your memory, CPU, all these things are fine, it just does not stop it. So Benz, and I'm gonna say C2. I'll just change the name of the reference. So guys, C1 and C2 is not the instance. It's the reference variable that accesses the instance in the memory. So just imagine that these things are reference variables. And I'm gonna again print this thing out, and it says BMW Benz. So what I'm doing is, from the same car class, I'm creating two different instances, right? And I'm passing two different values for self.make attribute. And how does it know that when I use C1, it should print BMW, and when I use C2, it should print Benz? Because when we created the reference variable, we passed in this BMW to this class, and it assigned self.make as BMW. So self is referring to that instance basically. So self is keeping track of that thing. And when we created C2 instance, it assigned Benz to self.make. So the attribute is still the same. Make is the name of the attribute, but self is keeping track of that. And however number of instances we create, and we can provide different values, we will be able to access them using those instance variables. So I can put here make, and I can put model. So if I put model, it's gonna again start giving me errors. It says parameter model unfilled because it needs model also to be passed in here, right? What I can do is, like we learned in positional parameters, I can put equals, and I can put a default model, maybe 550i, something like that. And if I put something like that, then I can define one more attribute, self dot model, and I can say it's equals to model. So since I have this model's by default value here, I can easily access it. So I can just say print and c1 dot model, right? And I can do the same thing. It shouldn't apply to Benz basically 550i, just because we're just trying to see the concepts, and we're just trying to see how we can utilize different stuff here. So let's use it. So when we print this stuff here, so it prints for the c1.make BMW, c1.model 550i, and then Benz and 550i. So that's about it, guys. That's what I wanted to talk about for the instances, objects, and all those sort of things. So I would say just download this code, refer, and practice as much as you can, and let me know if you have any questions. So stay tuned for the next lectures, guys. We're going to talk a lot more about the classes, and thanks for